I think the reason I didn't cheer you or compliment you or point out the things you were doing well or right is because I thought if he thinks I'm satisfied, if I compliment him, he'll think I'm good. And so then he'll become lazier or be worse. I'll enable you to stay at the point where you were, and I wasn't satisfied with where you were. Gosh, just saying that just sounds so wrong, doesn't it?
All right, pretty exciting day here at Family Life Today.
Are you excited?
I've got the best guest I've ever interviewed in my entire career with Family Life Today.
Do you think you're biased?
Well, I think our listeners or watchers are like, who are you interviewing today? They don't know. It's you.
It's me.
Ann Wilson.
And I'm interviewing you too, kind of.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about your new book. It's our book, but it's really your book, How to Speak Life to Your Husband When All You Want to Do Is Yell at Him. Are you excited about this?
I'm excited and a little nervous too.
Why?
It's because it's pretty raw and real of my journey, and I think I look like I'm so mean.
I mean, you really are a little scared.
I am a little bit.
I mean, you're not just saying that. I felt it.
I'm not like, hey, you should do this because this is the thing that God wants you to do. This is, let me show you how I totally messed up, and maybe you can learn something from Jesus through it,
I mean, I'm not as scared as you are, because when I read it, I thought, this is every wife.
You think?
Yeah, I think. I mean, you're, as we'll talk about, you're very honest, but
I don't think maybe not as many women express it with their words, and I didn't say words that were mean to you in terms of you're dumb or you're terrible like that. I was more sophisticated with my words, but women carry this incredible power within them to change and influence the people in their lives. And
that's sort of the big idea of the book, the power of a wife, power of a woman.
Yeah, especially their husbands. And we bring life, we bring hope, we bring energy, we bring wholeness, but we also have the power. We can use it, if we use it in a negative way, it can be devastating to a family. And I feel like it cripples men and our kids when we just constantly berate or criticize or critique them.
Well, definitely. And you know what? When we have a guest I really like, I sort of write a song for him.
You did not. Wait, am I in that category?
You're in that category.
Like me?
You're in that category. I'm sure this will make the top 10 Christian.
I always hear you practicing, but you didn't practice this one.
I had to be secret. It's how to speak life, so I thought I'd write a pretty little song like, how to speak life to your husband when all you want to do is yell at him. How to speak life to your husband.
Wait, do I have to be quiet like that?
When all you want to do is yell at him. Tell him you love him. Tell him he's the man. Let him watch TV and sports all night. Put a Coke Zero in his hand.
No, this is not what the book's about.
How to speak life to your husband. Come on, you gotta sing it with me.
Oh.
When all you want to do is yell at him. How to speak life to your husband. Look at that, you got a harmony. When all you want to do is yell at him. Not much of a ditty, but
I liked it.
Well,
good job, hon.
I just had the when all you want to do. So let's go there. I mean, it's like there's like two titles. There's the How to Speak Life, but we didn't understand how to speak life for a long time because it was
you can just say it. I didn't.
Well, I didn't either. We both. I mean, it isn't like this is a book just for women toward men. It goes both ways.
Yeah, it always does. Yeah.
So where did this whole idea start? And again, many Family Life Today listeners have heard several of these stories, but the story that opens the book is an epic one. Epic fail on my part, but it started us on a journey. Go ahead, tell them.
Right.
Tell them how I told everybody in the world instead of you.
And if anybody knows our story, and every marriage goes up and down, has the hills and valleys. And we had gone through a 10-year anniversary that we wrote Vertical about, which was really hard. But we got out of that valley and we started thriving. But I felt like our relationship was thriving, the two of us, but I was still struggling in my head about you. I didn't think you noticed what was going on, but let me take us to this place. So I was asked to speak to a mom's group at our church, and it was a time when our kids were busy. They're all in elementary school, some are in preschool, and I was stressed about doing this speaking because I didn't have any time to work on it. So what do? When I'm stressed, I go to you. And so I'm like, hey, hun, what do you think about speaking with me? Because the women will love it because you're their pastor. It'll be easier for me. And I just feel better when you're with me. And you are all about it. Like, yeah, I'd love to do that.
Yeah, why not?
So when we get there, on the way there, I said, have you thought about what you want to say? And you said, no, let's just wing it, which I'm like, oh, okay. What does that mean? So when we got there, you were into it. Like you were super passionate, really energized. And I was excited about that because like, oh, this is going to be great. Women are loving this. But you start sharing this thing that I had never heard you share before. And some of our listeners have heard this.
I don't think I'd ever said it before.
You had never said
Just
anything.
Sort of came out.
You had never said anything like this. That's why I was sitting on the edge of my seat like, whoa, this is new. I've never heard his thoughts on this. And so you say, women, I don't know if you get what it's like for us to be men, because usually somewhere in our childhood, we have a mom or a dad or someone that speak like they're just cheering for us, telling us, hey, look at you. You're so good at that. You know, when a little boy or little girl says, hey, mom, look, and the mom's like, oh, look. And you said, and then I got older and I found out, oh, I'm good at sports and I love sports. And so I had coaches that are telling me, hey, Wilson, you are really good at this. And they're cheering for me. And then you said,
I was the Lions MVP, 1970.
Pee-wee?
When I was 10 years old on the Pee-wee Lions football team.
We both grew up in the same hometown, and you were pretty spectacular as an athlete. Everybody knew that. So anyway, and then you said, and then on Saturdays, basically as a college quarterback, I've got people cheering for me like, yes, Dave Wilson, you're the man. Because you guys were pretty good back in the day.
We won a couple conference championships.
And again, I'm sitting in this stool, you're up, talking and pacing and like super into this. And you said then I meet Ann. And and you basically say, this is what you said. And Ann basically says, of all the men in the world, I choose you, Dave Wilson. You're the man. And you're cheering Ann and Ann's clapping. Now I'm sitting back on this stool thinking, wow, this is so interesting. I've never even thought about Dave's process of you're the man. And then I was really proud when you said, I chose you. And I said, you're the man and I'm cheering for you. And you're really excited and your voice is loud. And suddenly your whole demeanor changes and you get quiet. And then your voice goes low and you go, and then we get married. And after we've been married for a while and I walk in the door at the end of the day, all I hear is boo, 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 3 times, boo, boo, boo. And you also said, and that's what it feels like as a man when we walk in the door at the end of the day. I'm sitting on the stool like, what just happened? The women it's like this awkward laughter, kind of, and they're all looking at me. And I am shocked out of my mind. Like, what are you talking about? You have never said anything like this in our entire marriage, that I boo you or I do anything like that, or you come in the door at the end of the day. So what happened that day? Now that you're here, what?
Are you going to ask me 30 years later?
Yes.
I mean, I honestly, like you said, I didn't prepare. And when I was up there, when I was saying that, I felt like, wow, this is what it feels like. I have never said this out loud. I don't think I've ever articulated it so clearly to exactly what it feels like for me. And I think a lot of husbands, it's like everywhere I go, people are cheering me. Not everywhere, but a lot of places, like, you're good at this. And then I come home and I feel like I get critiqued and criticized. And the only way I could say it is boo. And I remember when I stood there and said that to all these women, you're right, the women sort of got quiet. I'm thinking, this isn't very affirming to them because they're you.
And you said, like, in general, this is how most men feel.
Husbands feel. So then I looked over at you. You're sitting on the stool behind me, and your look was like, you are a dead man. What are you saying right now? I don't even remember the rest of the talk.
I have no idea how we ended. All I know is we got into the car, and I was so mad and embarrassed, humiliated, full of shame. And I said, what was that? Do you remember what you said?
I said, I think God gave me that. It just came out. That's exactly sort of how it feels. And you're like, I'm not booing you.
Oh, I was like, you think I am booing you? I was so mad. I am helping you because I honestly thought I was. I thought I was because I'm pointing out the things that you could do better, the way you could be a better dad, a better husband. And everybody in the entire church is like, Dave Wilson's amazing. He's spectacular. So I think, he has the best self-esteem ever. He doesn't need me to be alongside them saying, oh, Dave, you're amazing. I thought I was motivating you by pointing out the things that you could be better at.
And so didn't work.
I said, and when I said, like, I am helping you, and you said, is it working? And I said, no. And that's why it feels like you're not even listening to me. So I say it more often and I say it louder. And it was terrible. The whole ride home was like that. What did you feel?
I mean, in some ways I felt relief because I was like, I think I finally said out loud what it feels like. I should have said it to you in the kitchen instead of in front of a bunch of women.
Why did you say it? Some women are like, how could he say that in front of these people? It wasn't intentional to hurt me.
I was trying to help them. It wasn't even about us. I was like, what I feel as a husband, I'm guessing, and in some ways I know, because I talk to husbands, a lot of husbands, majority maybe.
Do you think?
Of husbands feel like their wife is their biggest critic. I mean, I knew you loved me. I remember one time being with three guys in my small group, men's group that I've been with for decades. Love these guys. And we were going to a funeral and we were in this rental car. And I said to them right around this time, I said, hey, let me ask you guys a question. Do you feel like your wife loves you? Every guy, immediately. Yeah, of course. I said, let me ask you another question. Do you feel like your wife likes you? Every guy. Nope. Immediately.
Every single guy.
Nope. Every guy. Every guy. And I'm like,
and let me remind everybody, we're in a stage of life where all of us had young kids.
Oh, yeah.
Like crazy town.
Yeah.
And so that probably had a little bit to do with it.
Yeah, but the reason I'm asking them is like, is this common or is it just me? And they were like, this is my life. And they felt the same thing. They felt critiqued. They felt like they're not as good as other husbands. Their wife compares them to others. Like, and you had done that with me. And so it sort of felt like, in my job or in my ministry or outside the home, people sort of think I'm pretty good at what I do. And I come home and I'm pretty bad. At least that's what I hear. I think I'm doing okay. Sometimes I'm like, I am clueless. Help me out. But I often felt like you were booing me or critiquing me or trying to make me. I was like a fixer-upper project. I like this thing, but I'm going to tear down the whole thing and I'm going to gut it. And we're going to start over and make you the man that I thought I married.
Oh. And I think the reason I didn't cheer you or compliment you or point out the things you were doing well or right is because I thought if he thinks I'm satisfied, if I compliment him, he'll think I'm good. And so then he'll become lazier or be worse. I'll enable you to stay at the point where you were, and I wasn't satisfied with where you were. Gosh, just saying that just sounds so wrong, doesn't it?
I mean, you talk to a lot of wives. Do you feel like their experience is like yours, like they're trying to make their man better? They're not satisfied? They critique him a lot?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I was with 50 women a few weeks ago, and they're all in their probably 20s, 30s, a few 40-year-olds. And when I started talking about this, there was absolute silence in the room. And when I was toward the end, I'm like, what are you thinking about this? And one woman raised her hand and she said, can we seriously talk about this? Because I think every person in the room is feeling this, but we don't know what to do about it. And I thought that was really interesting. We don't know how to cheer. Are we supposed to cheer our men? Because wouldn't we be lying if we're not seeing a lot of things that are great and now we're just going, oh, you're amazing?
So what do you think's going on with women toward their man? Are they really that disappointed? Because I don't think men do it as much to women, although we do it. It goes both ways. No question.
Of course.
But it feels like a lot of wives are pretty disappointed and feel like they got to make their man better. And the way to do that is to not speak words of life, but words of death and critique.
I think a lot of it has to do with our expectations. When we go into marriage, we may not say it. We have hopes of what our husband will be like, what our marriage will be like. And our hopes are based on what we've known our husbands to be in our dating process. And you are pretty spectacular. Like, wow, you're pursuing me, you're talking, it's incredible. And then it felt like when we got married and things were stressed and busy, all that energy that you had when we were dating, now all that energy is going somewhere else. And the more you went somewhere else, the more I started to lose. It's like I put a magnifying glass on you. Like, wait, what are you doing? You weren't like this when we were dating. And then you have a child or two and they're like, what? Why aren't you helping? And we have expectations of what you should be like as a father, as a husband, as a man. And so I think what can happen is, and don't forget, there's an enemy of our marriage and our soul, Satan. And he's the accuser. And all he has to do is put a little whisper. It's interesting. You have to do that yourself again tonight. Interesting. How many times has Dave bathed the kids tonight? How many times has he done anything? How many nights has he been gone this week? You know what I mean? And so you start coming up with this list of things they're doing wrong. And if they're doing brain studies now, the more you get into that neurological pathway of going down into the negative route, that's just the pattern that you get into. And now you've shaped your core thinking around all these negative attributes. And I was surprised as we were studying this and even preparing for the book, I was surprised to find that 85% of our thoughts are negative, generally negative. Were you surprised to read that?
Yeah.
And then 95% of our thoughts are repetitive. And so think about it. When Paul says to take our thoughts captive, I wonder if that's why he says that. Because if you don't, you're always going to go into the darker tunnel rather than the lighter path.
So how did you dig out? Take us back to the story. We're driving home. I get out of the car. We sort of separated because you had to be alone.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a good drive home.
It was terrible. I went home and I ended up getting on my knees and I just vented to God all of my frustration and my anger toward you. And I got on my knees, actually. I said, Lord, can you believe it? I am working so hard. I am doing all these things for Dave and the kids and the family. And then he says all this. So I'm venting, telling him everything I feel, which is good. It's good. God can take that, share with him, like tell God all of that. That's called confession. And then I stopped and I said, God, do you think I boo Dave? Because I wanted him to get on my side. I thought he'd say, Ann, you're amazing. And I just felt one word. Yes. Yes.
I was over there praying that you'd hear from God.
But it took me on this journey of I felt like God was prompting me through his spirit to, one, start paying attention to what I think about you. And that was my first little step. What do I think about Dave? What do I think about our kids? Because honestly, as moms, we're training, we're disciplining, we're teaching our kids. And we can start getting into that mode with them too, that we're constantly training them and our words aren't even that positive toward them, especially teenagers. And so my thoughts were generally negative. Like, for instance, I was doing the laundry one day or the ironing and I was complaining about you. Isn't that so terrible? Did you used to take time to think negatively about me?
Not like you did.
I don't know if guys do this.
I mean, I did, but I sort of buried it and moved on.
You start.
And I go tell everybody else about it instead of you on stage.
Well, I would think negative, and then I felt like as I was working through this, I felt God kind of prompted me, what would happen if instead of complaining about Dave in your mind, you started praying for him? And it was so convicting, of just even what are my prayers? My prayers aren't negative about you, but I start praying for you like, Lord, I pray that you would really show Dave who he is in you and how much you love him and help him to be the man that you've created him to be. Like that would change everything. And so that was interesting. And then I felt like God was saying to me, start paying attention to your words. And if you had to take my words, if I trace them, most of them were negative instead of positive. And I think this is huge because Proverbs 18:21 says, death and life are in the power of the tongue. Like, think about that. Death and life are in the tongue. And so even as a listener, as a woman, your words to your family, are they more positive or are they death words? And so let me ask you, because one of the things I love that you did in this book is you wrote at the end of every chapter. And that's my favorite part.
Whatever. I had a page or two.
No, but could you see me struggling with that and trying to change?
Yeah, I mean, that boo story, we call it the boo story.
Yeah.
And by the way, remember the working title of this book at the beginning was Don't Boo Your Boo.
Oh, yeah.
And we're like, yeah, that's not going to be the title of this book.
Somebody suggested that.
Yeah, that wasn't going to work. But yeah, I mean, I started to watch you wrestle with critiquing me and booing me and death words. I could tell you were really like grappling with, I think what Dave said is what he feels. And I think wives have to deal with that. It's like, I mean, you talk about if you're a wife listening or even a woman to men in your life, your brothers, your dad, people you work with, ask them, do you feel like I affirm you and build you up? Or do you feel like I critique you and tear you down? And again, we are not saying when a man needs to be critiqued and told the truth.
And we're also not saying, like, if you're in an abusive situation of any kind, you're not like, oh, honey, you're amazing. Right. You need to get out and get help. We're talking about the average good-willed person who wants to have a great marriage, but they're struggling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I watched you start to change, right?
I hope.
How did that happen?
Well, I think there are a lot of things that we could get into, but one would be I had to look in the mirror. I mean, don't you love Matthew 7:3-5 that says having a log in your eye is a pretty big deal? It's when Jesus is talking and says, don't try to get the splinter out of someone else's eye when you have a log in your own eye. And I thought, I need to start paying attention to myself. Instead of critiquing you, I need to get out a mirror and start looking at what I'm doing, what I'm saying, how is my mind being shaped by the Holy Spirit and by God? Am I in the Word enough? Because that changes a lot of the way I think. And I think I was crushing your spirit. I think that, and I was doing that to the kids too, which is super sad. Because I would watch you go out around other people and you are vibrant, you're full of life and joyful. And when you got home, you were quiet. And this is awful. But I thought, oh, he's passive. He's passive. And I think that I probably critiqued you. And I never said, you're dumb, you're terrible. I never said anything mean with my words. But my words were like, why can't you? Why don't you? You should. And I think for you, that was an incessant, constant, like draining thought, like she doesn't think I'm good enough. She's not satisfied. That would be draining as a husband. And I was blaming your passivity on you just being a weak-willed man. Like, come on, man, step up, be the man. And then I would hear stories, and now you can get on Instagram of what men should be like or what they should do. And it doesn't help to compare your man to any of those guys.
Yeah, so how did it change? Because you changed.
I mean, I think my prayer was, God, show me the greatness of Dave. Show me the good things. Show me who you see him to be. And you guys, God started doing that. One, became accountable to some friends, kind of in that journey. I had a couple friends that knew what I was going through. I had to be in the Word constantly because that's what starts changing our thought life, is being in the Word. And I asked God to show me that. And so I started seeing great things in you, things that I hadn't seen in years. And I think that was a really big step. And we share this. I bet a lot of people have watched Vertical Marriage and seen the chopping plants. But man, think about this. When you have a plant and the plant is you, the plant is the man. And if we you can almost take a weed whacker and just chop that thing down, or hedge clippers or whatever, and you're chopping all the negative things. But if we start fertilizing and we start noticing the plant's leaves and we start pouring into like words of affirmation, do you think that matters to you? Hearing words?
It matters to everybody. I mean, nobody wants to be around negative, critiquing people. You run away from them. So if that's in your marriage, you're running away from your marriage. You're running to your job. You're running to other activities. You're doing whatever you can to stay out of the house. And you know what? I was out of the house a lot, not just my job, my ministry. I was playing ball games because, gee whiz, I can throw a softball or football and people go, wow, you got an arm. And I didn't know that. I mean, guys don't realize I'm doing these things because I'm getting cheered in a sense. And we're going to go have a Coke afterwards and we're going to talk about the plays I made and the plays you made. And then you come home and you're like, where were you? Why aren't you here? And you know, the boys need you. You didn't mow the yard. You didn't take the trash. I mean, again, and those are things that have to happen in a marriage and in a home. But it felt like, you know, I didn't come home and you say, hey, how was the game? Did you play well? It's
That's because I hated the game. Like I hated that you were gone and I was mad that took you away.
I wanted you to come to the game.
I did for a while. When the boys started eating like the top of bottle caps and putting them in their mouths as 2-year-olds, I was like, I'm out. But I think not every woman and not every wife says it verbally, but they've done studies of that a man, this is true of anybody, you can tell in your way of being.
Yeah, you wrote about that in the book, Way of Being. It was in your demeanor. It was in your attitude. It was in the rolling of the eyes. It was in the, little comments. It's body, it's posture.
It goes both ways.
Oh, of course. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
I'm harsh. I roll my eyes and make you feel stupid. We've talked about that many times. It's a way of being.
That would be a great question to ask your spouse. What do you feel like is my way of being toward you? I think in those days, what would you have said to me if I would have asked you that?
You're disappointed.
And I think if I would say, because this goes back and forth, I'd say, you think I'm stupid.
Yeah. And you told me that.
Yeah.
You think I'm stupid. And I'm like, no, I don't. What are you talking about? And I was harsh. And my words were not words of life. They were words of death. So were yours.
Yeah, totally.
So how did God change your mind to get you to, because you are the greatest speaker of life to me of anybody in my life. You cheer me. You believe in me. You say these things to me. I mean, it didn't change in a week or a month, but over time and probably over a couple years, I'm not kidding. You speak life. What you wrote, How to Speak Life to Your Husband, it's like a memoir, but it's true. You are a great life speaker. Not just to me, to our boys, to our grandkids, to strangers in an airport. I mean, it drives me crazy sometimes. You walk up to people and you can see too when you speak life, like life enters their soul. You can see a vibrancy comes to their soul because somebody sees greatness in them and speaks it out. How did you become that woman?
I mean, it makes me get teary that you say that, just because I was so opposite. And it makes me so sad that I was so opposite of that. I think God had to do surgery. And I think my first thing I had to confess was pride. I was thinking all the time, the problem of our marriage is you. All the time. If he would be better, I would be happier. If he would be a better dad, the kids would be better kids. I blamed everything on you.
I didn't think you'd be crying about your own book.
It makes me sad the way that I was. And I was so blinded to it because I had a log in my eye. And I think I felt like God was really convicting me. But when he did that, it wasn't a shame kind of thing. It was an encouragement like, Ann, start seeing the greatness in Dave. And it was like God was cheering me on. And so I started out by just asking God, show me the great things. And then I couldn't even, this is so terrible. I couldn't even say it at first. The only thing I could start doing was to thank you. I asked God, show me the things he's doing well. And so I started thanking you for little things. And we've shared that before, that like you were shocked by it. And we've shared the dinner table story before of when we were about to eat and I was working through all this. I felt like I just looked at you and I said, hey, before we pray, before we eat, I just want to say thank you, Dave, for working so hard. Your work ethic is incredible. This food on the table is here because you work so hard to provide. So thanks for that.
Yeah, I remember that. And the boys were like, can we eat? I mean, what is happening? Because that had never really happened. No. Like, hey, before we eat, I just want to say something to Dad. And you turned to me and it wasn't just 5 seconds. It was, you work hard. You're a man of integrity. You lead this church. This is all for us. Thank you. And I knew, we've said this before, but I knew that you were doing what a book on the kitchen hutch behind you said, respect your man, love your man. I knew it was all like, you're just doing what the book said, but I'm telling you what, it felt like my chest was going to pop out of my shirt. I was pumped out of my mind. I was like, I almost yelled out, I am the man, aren't I? I mean, it just felt so good to have you say that. And honestly, at first I was like, does she really believe it? Or is she just doing what the Bible tells her to do, to speak life to her man? And I'm just telling you, it was motivating. And I think that's what wives and women may not understand is when you critique a man, when you boo him or criticize him or compare him to other men that are better in your mind, thinking it's going to motivate him, right? It's almost like a hard coach.
It's like a coach. Yeah.
I'm going to coach him hard.
You can't do this. And I thought you would think, oh, wait till I'm going to show you how good I can be.
And I'm sure in some ways that happens every once in a while, but most of the time it doesn't motivate, it demotivates a man.
You think it deflates him? A man
is not motivated by critique. I'm not sure women are either.
No,
it probably goes both ways.
Oh, it's totally both ways.
But I know when you started speaking life and believing in me and saying I was a good man, and because it went from you're a good provider to then you started saying things like, you're just a good man. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? You never said that before. Like, you're a good man of God. You're a good husband. You're a great dad. You're a good leader, spiritual leader. All the things that you used to say the opposite of. At first, I was skeptical, like you're just saying it. But then over time.
And I never said anything that I didn't see because I'm not one that can be like, oh, I'm just going to say this and fake him out. And I'm just going to say things that aren't true, but I hope that he becomes. It wasn't manipulation at all. It was God showing me like these little corners of you that I hadn't seen before. Like, whoa. And we've shared this a bunch of times, but my biggest complaint was probably you as a spiritual leader.
Yeah.
Because I had Dennis Rainey in my head, like, you need to get in there and let's open the word, kids, and, have these big time devotionals. I had these expectations of what that should look like. And when I asked God to show me the greatness and show me even how you're leading, I remember we've shared this so many times, that you came out of the bedroom after praying with the boys, and my prayer was, God, show me the greatness of Dave. And I was in awe. This is the first time it had ever happened. They were little. And you came out of the room and my words were, I'm so jealous of the power you have. And I always like how you're fishing for a compliment after that. You're like, oh, what do you mean? Do you think you do that?
Everybody does. I'm going to admit it. I want a compliment. So do you.
What do you mean?
So does every person.
And I just said that that when you're in there and you're praying, I watch them and they're locked in to you. Everything you said, they're clinging to every word. I go in there and they're like, there's bedlam and chaos and they're not listening to anything. But man, I wish I had that power that you carry. It's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, literally, I can see myself at the top of the stairs and you sitting on the hallway saying that.
What?
That's how powerful words of life can be. I mean, words of death, you can remember where you were standing when somebody critiqued you or said you're a loser.
Yeah.
But words of life, the same thing. It's like, I can remember standing there. I mean, we're still in that house.
Yeah.
And, I remember looking down at you and thinking, really? She thinks I do good? The boys hang on me? And I'm telling you, wives, understand this. And this is what I did in the book. I come at the end of every chapter and say, I want to just give you a husband's perspective on what Ann just said. Wives, understand this. The next night, I'm running up the stairs into that bedroom to pray and have devotionals with my boys, which I was not doing a lot of because I felt like I'm not a very good spiritual leader. I don't do it the way Ann wants me to do it. I don't stand at the end of the bedroom with a pulpit and a big Bible that's 18 inches wide and preach the gospel. That was sort of the joke, is like I want a sermon given to our kids. I would just lay on the bed. We talk about God. We pray. And all I know is I'm running up the stairs the next night. She says I'm good at this. She says the boys hang on every word. I'm just telling you, women, that's how you motivate a man. And again, you're not lying. You're
or
just
manipulating.
You're just seeing, and you're asking God, give me eyes. Our one son calls them God goggles. Give me God goggles to see my man the way you see him. And so I'm going to speak to him the words you speak to him, which are words of affirmation and belief. And I'm just telling you, you want to motivate your man? Don't do it to motivate your man. Just do it because you really are seeing something great. Don't hold it to yourself. Speak it out. And I'm telling you, your man, it's like this. I've said this many times on stages when we talk about this in vertical marriage. It's like you were saying, and if you're listening, you can't see this, but hopefully you're watching on YouTube. You were saying, I'm this man, and I have my hands way up above my head. And I felt like I'm this man. I'm way down here. And some of that's because I believe that, and you've told me that most of my, life. And so now you're saying I'm this man, and I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't even see myself as that way. All I know is, as you kept saying that, I started to realize she really does see me differently now. She does think I'm a good man and a good leader and a good provider and a good spiritual leader and a good husband. And all I know is I was like, I'm going to become the man she says I am, that I'm not yet, but I'm going to become that guy. That's how it works for men. And I'm sure it works that same way for women. But man, as you believe in us and you speak life to us, we want to become the man you say we are and get better. And who was it? I think it was Matt Chandler, wasn't it? We just interviewed.
Oh, yeah.
And I think he said, when you put a crown on a man, he'll become a king.
Yeah.
It's that idea, is like you were saying, you're this guy. And that made me go, I will be that guy.
I think my thought was, God, you know who you created Dave to be. You know all of the places inside of him of what you created to become. And part of my job and my role, and it goes both ways, is to pull out those things that God put in you. Because I feel like men are living in a culture now where they're just being diminished. Their voices don't matter. They're ridiculed. Men aren't as important. And I know that there has been a time where men have been really domineering in a negative way over women, and that's not healthy. We're not saying that. But I look at my 3 sons, and now I have 4 grandsons, and I'm thinking, where's the role model to be a real man? Because women, we're elevating women like crazy, but I'm afraid we're going to lose our men. And I think part of the question is, for me as a woman, I had to go back and think, what is my pushback, even with women in our, who I'm supposed to be as a wife? And when we started speaking for the Weekend to Remember Marriage Getaways.
35 years ago. Yes. That's a long time.
Yes. I mean, let me give you a piece of my background. My mom was spectacular as a wife, but I totally disrespected her. She was joyful. She was kind. She was giving. She spoiled my dad so bad that it was, to me, like the worst thing ever, because my dad felt like he was selfish. a narcissist, and I felt like my mom was enabling him. And she was so nice to him. Wasn't she nice to him?
She was nice to everybody.
I know.
I never saw her leave the kitchen or the laundry room anytime we visited. She spent the entire 3 or 4 days we're there. Cooking. I'd be sitting in
happy. Like, she's not like, I have to do everything.
No.
She's
she loved
happy.
it. She loved to serve. I'd be sitting in a lazy boy watching a football game, and she'd come in. You want a milkshake? No, that's okay. No, really, you want a milkshake? I'll make a milkshake. Okay, make me 3. She would do that, and then she'd be in the laundry room doing all our wash. She was a servant, but your dad took advantage of that. He'd like snap his fingers, and she would run to help him.
I was so mad at her.
And in some ways, I think that was sort of the culture. It's like women serve their men.
That generation, for sure.
Yeah.
But she did it with such a beautiful attitude. And I would say to her, I'd go to her mom, like, you are enabling Dad to be so selfish. He does nothing. And she goes, oh, honey, but I really like it. And I'm thinking, I hate it. I hate that you're doing it like that. And in my mind, I thought, I will never do that to my husband.
And you didn't. For quite a long time, it's like, I am not going to be that wife.
I remember one time when our kids were little. Do you remember my dad saying this? He said, your kids have it pretty good. Way better than Dave. I was so offended. Like, because I'm not serving like Mom because she spoiled you? He's like, no, but I'm seeing you're spoiling your kids, but Dave's got nothing. And I asked God, like, God, was that from you? And then, this is so funny, my dad sent me a letter the next week. He's never sent me a letter in my life. And it was, remember Ann Landers, the gossip column? And this woman said, like, a man wrote in, like, my wife treats our kids so good, but she doesn't give me any attention or any kindness. And my dad sent that to me. I was super convicted.
I told him to send it to you. No, I didn't.
But anyway, and so then when we started speaking for the Weekend to Remember, and when you get into Genesis,
the book of Genesis
2:18, and God's creating woman, and he says that he's created woman to be a helper suitable for Adam. So this was when we first started speaking for Family Life. I was 29. And I remember I kept studying this, looking at it. I've been to seminary, but I knew that I should look it up in Hebrew, but I didn't. And so I looked it up in the dictionary, Webster's dictionary. And the word I was like,
where's my helper? Right?
The word was helper. Yeah, because I'm like, why does he get a helper? I don't have a helper. Of course, the man gets a helper and the woman doesn't. Like, I wish I had somebody to help me. I think that all the time when the kids were little. Wish I had somebody to help me around here. And so that helper that word really got stuck with me. Like, I don't want to be the helper. And so the helper, when the dictionary talks about basically someone important tells them what to do, I'm like, this is why I don't want to be the helper. And when I talk to you about it, you're like, have you looked it up in the Hebrew? I'm like, no. And so to look it up in the Hebrew was really interesting for me. And I feel like I've still been learning about this. And remember when we had Christy McClelland on?
Oh, yeah. She was phenomenal.
Phenomenal. And I like that the word helper in Hebrew is the word azer. And that word is a powerful word. And we wrote in here, like, there's nothing subservient or inferior about being a helper. It carries the idea of strengthening someone in a way they cannot do for themselves, revealing a powerful understanding of God's unique strength and influence given to the woman. And then the word suitable is the word kenedgo, which is not used any other time in Scripture in the whole Bible. And that word means to stand toe to toe, which is also interesting to me because it's not the little helper. Helper, this word is used many times in Psalms when Israel's in trouble and they're calling out, like, where does my help come from? The only psalm that Moses wrote talks about Moses saying, our help comes from, our azer comes from God. And so when you think of it in that term, that's a powerful word of help to a man.
I mean, it's shattering God is our help.
It's not the little helper.
I mean, God is called an Azer. He's a helper.
Yeah.
So to say a wife is a helper is not a demeaning, subservient term. It's like you are as powerful in your man's life as God is. You're
well, maybe not that powerful,
well,
but
I mean, you're very powerful. It isn't like you're a weak little, sidekick over here that does everything so the man's life will be better. You're a partner, an equal partner who stands. Talk about suitable.
Toe
to toe. What's that mean? Toe to toe.
I think as we look at that, I think my best description of it was when we were having a lunch with some of our guests who are several different theologians were in the room. But that word toe to toe, when I was asking a lot of the people at lunch, like, what do you guys think it means?
Dr. Jeff Myers was sitting there that day over lunch, and he made a comment. I recorded it because
Did you?
Yeah, I mean, the conversation got really rich. Here's a guy with a doctorate in theology, and we're just discussing because you were writing the book and studying this whole thing, and we're like, and he's a scholar, and he's like, yeah, I've studied this, many times. And when he made that comment, which you put in the book, where he said, I think God was trying to give us a picture of when a husband looks at his wife, he sees in her eyes the man he can be. That's a different picture of helper. It's like an equal partner who brings out the best. You stand toe to toe. That means you speak life and you compliment and you encourage, but it also means
that you will
speak the truth.
And I think that that's really important for you as a listener to hear. We're not saying you're just this subservient, quiet little mouse in the house.
Right.
When you have something to say, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, it's really important for you to say it because we strengthen one another in our marriage as iron sharpens iron. A lot of times that's used for men in the scriptures, but we do that in our marriage too. We strengthen each other by sometimes speaking hard truths, but we do it in a way that can be heard and understood.
Yeah, and I could share thousands of times in our marriage in 45 years where your words of life, standing toe to toe, have helped me see how great I can be and better as a man and a husband and dad. But at the same time, your words of truth, which later in the book you talk about, you got to package those words of truth in love. Ephesians 4:15, speak the truth in love. So you got to package them in a building up way, even though it's hard truth. You have said hard things to me that I didn't want to hear, but I needed to hear. And so in some ways, standing toe to toe, being an Azer Conegdo was like, you're my partner and you bring life to me, but you also hold me accountable to be the man that God wants me to be. And those hard truths made me better. They sharpened me. And so both ways it works.
But when I was only speaking hard truths,
right,
you couldn't hear it because
they're all withdrawals. And when you start speaking life, you're deposit. And now you got to make a withdrawal with a hard truth. Your husband's he's going to receive it because he feels built up. And so now you're taking $1 out when you put in $500 million. That's a pretty good analogy of how much life you're speaking. It doesn't hurt, but it does sharpen us. I mean, we've said this many times the night that I was crawling into bed after a long weekend and you said, I wish the man that led our church lived here. I'm not saying that's the best way to say it, but that's literally what you said. And I didn't even know what you meant. I'm like, what do you mean? And you were just like, I watched you preach this morning and you're on fire and you're casting vision and you're praying with a fervency. And when you come home, you just don't bring any of that. You're just sort of dead. And I remember I should have said, thanks. That was helpful. I jumped out of bed and said, you don't realize I'm the best husband in the whole church. You think those other guys are losers compared to me? That's how I responded because I didn't like the critique. But the next day when I'm sitting with God and saying, God, were you speaking to me through Ann? He's like, yep. And then those words motivated me because I remember saying, even on my knees right there in my little bedroom office, again, the boys were young then. I just remember saying, okay, God, the most important disciples in my life that I'm pouring into are not 1,000 people at my church. It's Ann, it's CJ, it's Austin, and Cody. I should be bringing to my home more energy than I bring anywhere else. Not that your job doesn't matter, your ministry, whatever you're doing, it matters. You bring everything you got. You work unto the Lord and you are excellent and you bring passion. But I was bringing it out there and not in here. And those words that you spoke were hard words. I mean, you just said what you felt, but I heard God use those and say, you got to step up and be the man that I've called you to be. And I felt like I made a commitment that day to say, I'm stepping up. I got to become a better husband, a better dad. I got to be a spiritual leader in this home, not just in the church. And that was a hard toe-to-toe moment where I think you were my helper suitable to transform me in some ways.
And I think we do that with our kids too. When we
for sure.
look at them and we see who God made them to be and to speak truth, we're speaking both love and truth to our kids. But I think what hit me about that lunchtime that when we were talking about the helper suitable, my thought was, when Dave looks into my eyes, what does he see? What's the reflection that he sees? And a lot of that's my way of being. And if you were being totally honest, back in the day when we talked about this, the chopping plant story and the booze story, what did you see when you looked into my eyes? I don't think I've ever asked you this.
I felt like you were discouraged and disappointed that I wasn't the man you thought I was when we dated, when we were engaged. I wasn't the spiritual leader. I wasn't romantic as much as you thought I would be. I didn't serve you like you thought I would be. And you know what? All of that was true. I wasn't doing any of that. So, I mean, I've been speaking around the country at these Iron Sharpens Iron men's conferences. So we got 1,000 men in the room. And one of the workshops I've been doing this year is how to become the husband your wife thought she married. And these guys come in there because like they've heard the same thing. I thought you were going to be this. Because when we're dating, we're romantic, we're giving everything we got, and then we get married and we sort of get lazy in the marriage side and we get energized on the job side, and our wives feel duped.
Yeah.
And so what happens? They start speaking that out, and the man's like, okay, you don't like what I'm doing? Okay, I'll see you later. And they go back to work, and it all starts to change, I think, and it's on us as men to become the men. And that's what I challenge the guys to be. It's like, man, what would it look like to really love your wife? Like she's the most important person in your life, because she is. She's more important than the kids.
That'll be your book.
Yeah, maybe that'll happen. But all I know is I felt like you were disappointed.
When you look at me now, what do you see?
I feel like you think I'm the man. I mean, some ways I'm like, you're deluded, but you keep saying you're amazing. And I feel like in some ways you see me as your helper now. Like you didn't get a helper? You got one right here, and I want to be your helper. I want to be serving you, and I don't want to have to be asked to vacuum the family room. I want to see it and step up and do it because you deserve it, because you're going to do it. And I know there's still sometimes you're like, seriously? I asked you to vacuum the family room yesterday, and it's still, and you know, we just lay there like, well, I'm going to do it, but it's like, no, get off the couch and do it now, because you've made me a better man.
Well, it's interesting with all of this. As we've been learning all of that, like I love the word azer kenedgo now, helper suitable. Like it's a term that I want to be a part. I'm helping you to become the man that God created you to be. But one of the things I love that Christy McClellan also said was when she asked a Jewish rabbi over in Israel, what do you think azer kenedgo means, helper suitable for Adam? And she's, he's in his 70s, he has a beard, and she said he thought about it for a minute. And then he said, you know what I think it means, Christy, is that God knew there was an enemy in the garden. And it would take the man and the woman standing side by side in battle together to defeat the enemy. It would take the two of them. And it made me think when I heard that, how often we had been facing each other, fighting each other, when God was saying, no, I put you together on the planet and in your family to battle the enemy together. Not battle each other, but battle together, because there's a great battle going on in marriage and family. And we have to win it together.
Yeah, I think a lot of couples really do think their enemy's their spouse.
Me too.
Because they've been disappointed and maybe even hurt.
Abandoned or...
Then again, we say this, it feels like we say it every 4 or 5 pages in the book. if your man is hurting you physically,
Yeah.
Verbally assaulting you, we are not saying,
Right.
cheer your man,
Yeah.
stand toe to toe and speak life to him. No, it's like, you need to get safe first, And we're not saying get divorced, but get safe. And hopefully God can transform him by you protecting yourself. But if he's a good-willed man, he's trying his best, but he's like me, he's clueless and he's missing and he's falling short. You get the chance to transform your man by being the helper God has created both of us to be to one another.
Yeah.
To bring life into his soul and literally transform him.
And let me tell you, if you're trying to find life through your husband, you're trying to get to the wrong place to give you life. And I think we say this.
That goes back to vertical.
Yeah. I was going to say, we say this over and over. And I would say, as my testimony, it is not Dave who fills me up. He's great. And sometimes he's not. But it is not Dave who fills me up. It is Jesus. That's why I have to be in the Word every single day. I know this sounds weird, but when I'm in the Word, I have my eyes on the Father. If I'm not in the Word for 3 days in a row, they automatically drift toward Dave. They drift toward you because I'm like, oh, why isn't he? Or why does he? I automatically try to find my life through you. And it's just a habit that's a bad habit. When we're not locked in with the Father, we're looking for other places to fill our soul.
Yeah, if we're not filled up by our relationship with Jesus, and again, I know it's easy to say, it's work.
Yeah.
It's like a workout. You got to put in the time and let him fill you. We become a drain in our marriage rather than a fountain.
Yeah, that's good.
How about that? I want to be a fountain that overflows the living water of Jesus in me to my spouse rather than demanding from her or him that they meet my needs so that I can be happy. I'm already happy. I've found life in Christ. I mean, that's what vertical is.
Totally.
Go vertical and he'll fill you, and then you can pour out to serve and love your spouse.
But let me finish this part about my mom because I had such disrespect for her. She's been gone now for several years, but the last 15 years.
Gone meaning
she's passed away. Yeah. The last 15 years of her life, she had Alzheimer's. And man, to watch my dad serve my mom after that. My dad had never done the laundry. He never cooked. He never did anything in the house because she did it all. And he started doing all of it. It makes me teary thinking about that too, because she'd sit in her chair. She'd look out over this golf course that they were on. And
she had dementia. She really didn't know exactly all that was going on.
I could still see my dad rubbing lotion on her arms, on her feet, clipping her toenails, her fingernails, cooking, doing everything. Like he didn't even know how to fold a shirt. She packed for him their whole lives. He did absolutely everything that she had done for him. And I remember saying to him, Dad, I respect you so much. The way you're loving and serving Mom is it's astounding to watch you serve her and love her. And he got more tender as he got older, but he said, and he had given his life to Jesus, and my mom had too. But he said, how could I not? She's my girl. She has served me and loved me better than anyone could. How could I not repay her for all the things that she's done to me? And I remember saying, I just wish that she would have told you, when you were being more self-centered. My dad and I have a very open relationship. I'm probably the most like him in terms of words. We both say everything we're thinking. And he said, you don't think your mom ever told me? And I said, no, I wanted her to yell at you at least one time. And he said, Ann, when we were alone, she would tell me hard things that were really hard, not all the time. And she would write me letters like, please do this for Bill, or make sure you pay attention to Barb. And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, she did that on a regular basis, not constantly, but on a regular basis. And everything she wrote down or told me, I would make sure I did it because her words were powerful and I loved her and respected her. I wish I'd have known all that. Isn't that powerful?
I remember, because like we said, I always wrote at the end of your chapters, and I didn't even sometimes know what you wrote. And then you'd hand me the manuscript and say, so what do you want to add? And I remember reading the end of that chapter, your story about Dick and Toot. And Dick, Dick was my high school coach. I've known him since I was a teenager. He had to be one of the most selfish men I'd ever known.
I didn't know you were going to say that.
I didn't either. He just was, man. I mean, it's like, and he would sort of like encourage us to be selfish. Don't do that. Your wife should be doing that. It's like, that was just the way the mindset was for him. I remember that one time we were down at your parents' house and your brothers were there and everybody's there. 12 grandsons terrorizing the house.
Yes.
And I said, we should let the girls all go out tonight for dinner and we'll stay home and have dinner with the boys and take care for the next couple hours, to serve you. And you guys are all like, we can go out?
We had never done this.
And I'm like, guys, we're going to do this. We're going to step up. Let's send the girls out. So you guys go all out to dinner and you are not gone 20 minutes. And Dick goes to the window and looks at the road and he starts screaming. I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, they should be here. What are they doing? They know they're neglecting their duties. We can't do this. I'm going to call them. They need to get back here. I go, Dick, we can handle this for 2 hours. We can get it. But that was his mindset. That's
good. I'm glad you said that. Now you see how riled up I could get about him.
Oh, yeah. And you would lay into him, you should love mom. But, when I read what you said about when Toot got dementia and he literally said, I am not putting her in a nursing home. I will take care of her. And we're like, no, you should probably, nope. She did this for me for 50 years. I'm going to do this for her. And every time we walked in the kitchen, there he was, loving her. She just sat there because she was at that stage.
But she remembered him till the very end.
And I could not believe the transformation. And so when I read it at the end of that chapter, I cried.
You did.
As I was reading that part of just like, he modeled the love of Christ. Love your wife as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. He sacrificed the rest of his life to say she deserves this. I think he felt guilty, like I didn't do this for decades and I can do it now and I'm going to do it. And I feel like you've done the same thing.
What do you mean?
I feel like you've served me. Unlike, you saw your mom. You're like, but by the end, man, you had respect.
Yeah, I did.
For your dad and your mom.
Both.
But I did as well,
I think one of the things that maybe another time we can get into later is our past. I think a lot of us have past wounds and past hurts that create expectations in the marriage. We put a lot of our hopes and dreams on a spouse that maybe come from wounds from the past, wanting our spouse to meet those needs. I was a perfectionist because of growing up in a very performance-oriented family. So I wanted our marriage to be the best and to be great. And
no, you wanted me to be the best, to be great.
Well, that's how we were going to be great, by you being great.
And I wanted the same thing, but I think we got there.
Me too.
And some of it had to do speaking life. I mean, for some reason, I'm thinking of the story, and our listeners have heard this, but if you've never heard this story, the night I crawled in bed, why does this always happen at 11 o'clock at night? And
because when you have kids, it's the only time you talk.
Yeah, well, explain this one, because this is another transformation for you of what you would have said compared to what you did say that night. When I said, I feel like I'm getting critiques on my sermons. Like people are, back then we had little cards that they could write prayer requests on. And instead of writing prayer requests, they would write critiques. And so I'm reading, and of course, always anonymous, but, some critiques. And so I just said to you, I said, wow, I don't know if I'm a good preacher or not, because people they're criticizing my sermons. I said that at 11 o'clock at night, laying in bed.
I'm embarrassed to say this, but because I'm a verbal processor, I generally say whatever pops into my head. And if you're a verbal processor, this is bad. Don't say whatever pops into your head. Because I felt like God was asking me to do a couple things, to ask him a few questions before I spoke. 1, should I say it? 2, if I should say it, how should I say it? And 3, when should I say it? So when Dave got into bed and he said, man, I'm getting all these critiques. This is embarrassing. This is the thought that came into my mind. Well, if you'd spend more time studying the scriptures, your sermons would be better. I almost said that thinking it would be helpful. So I said to God, God, should I say that? No. No. God, should I say anything? And this popped into my head as I prayed that. It was just a quick, like it was a second prayer, just a second prayer. God, should I say anything? And this thought popped into my head. I reviewed it and then I said it. And I said, man, I can't imagine how hard it is being you. And then, you're like, what do you mean? I said, you have thousands of people, because our church had thousands of people dependent on your walk with God. That is a weighty thing to carry. That's all I said. And then there was silence. And then you grabbed me, you pulled me over to yourself, you kissed me, and you whispered in my ear, you are my life. Now, imagine if I would have said, if you would just study the scriptures more, your sermons would be way better.
I'd probably been sleeping on the floor. I mean, I never knew you even had that initial thought. Never,
Isn't that awful?
Never happened.
Like, why would I even think that? But God was still getting a hold of my thought patterns and my thought life. But even bringing God into it, God, should I say it? Man, think about your teenagers. God, should I say it? Thinking about your spouse, should I say it? And then to ask the question, when should I say it? Or how should I say it? And when should I say it?
And what you spoke words of life. The way you said that. And let me just say to the women and to the wives, I didn't think I'm going to pull Ann close and say, you are my life. It was just spontaneous. That's what came out. But now I know why that came out that way. Because you think about this, and women, please understand this. If some stranger comes up to your man and says he's good, like if at church, somebody might come up and say, hey, you're amazing. And, we work with NFL players for so long, and that happens often to an NFL player. You're amazing. They're fans. You're incredible. And I've been with guys when they hear that and they just smile and say thank you. And they turn to me and like, yeah, they don't know me. They don't know the weaknesses, and maybe he's a jerk at home. It's just a fan. And so when somebody come up to me at church and say, you're amazing, I'd do the same thing. I'd say, yeah, thanks. That's nice. And I think they don't know me. They see me on stage and maybe they liked what I did, but they don't know me. But when somebody that knows everything about you, the good and the really bad and ugly, like your spouse. So when you said to me that night, I can't imagine, it felt like she loves me and believes in me, even though she sees all the crap in my life.
It's the gospel.
That carries weight. I think that's why I grabbed you and said, you are my life. It's like, if you love me, at the same time you see the truth about me, I'm just saying, wives, you understand that? When you speak life to your man, because they know the bad and the ugly, but you still see the good and you speak life. And that doesn't mean you don't speak truth to the bad and the ugly. You do that as well. But man, when you're seeing the greatness in your man and you're speaking that out, I'm telling you, I felt in that moment like, I can't do life without you. You are my life. And I didn't mean Jesus is my life. He's ultimately my life. But I was like, I got an Azer Canegdo beside me, standing toe to toe. We're partners. We're going to battle together, not with each other, but against the enemy together. That's how powerful you as a woman can be. And I just got to say this. I think that's the central theme of your book, How to Speak Life, is you as a woman are powerful.
Yes. God
is giving you influence and power in life and in your children and in your man and everywhere you go. And you can use that power for good or for bad. And God is giving you a choice to say, use this power for good. And you will not only transform the world, you'll transform your family. Yeah. And the way you're trying to do it, like we did for years, probably isn't working. Guess what? God's saying, that's never the way I intended you to use this power I've given you. I've given you a power to speak life. And when you do, it changes everything and everybody around you.
So let us end by just giving you a few tips. One, don't think that, okay, I'm just going to start saying a few good things. That's not, this is a heart change. Like our words.
It's really a mind change.
It's a mind change. It's a heart change because our words flow out of our hearts. That's what the scripture says. And so
that's what literally Jesus said.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so First of all, I would say get before God and just say, God, I can't do this apart from you. I needed to repent, honestly. I'm like, God, I am sinning. I am destroying my family and my home. And I don't know if you need to do that, but I needed to repent. Like, God, I can't do this. I repent. I confess. I need your help to go in a new direction. And so then ask God, like, and plug into him. The vertical piece is the most important. He's our hope. He's the one that's the hero of the story. And then ask God, maybe this is your little baby step. God, show me the greatness in my husband. Give me eyes to see him the way you do. Start small, and God can do so much and transform entire families as a result of our words.
Hey, by the way, you can get this book at FamilyLifeToday.com. A link to Ann's book is in the show notes. Go get it. Go buy. You know what? We never said this about any other author's books. Go buy 100 of them. You got 100 people you want to give this book to. No, I'm kidding. I really do think it'll be, we've been praying on our knees that God would use this to transform marriages. And here's the thing, it doesn't just transform a marriage, it transforms a legacy. Because your kids are watching.
Yeah.
And they're gonna copy what they see, and then it's gonna be lived out in your kids and your grandkids and their kids. So what a powerful thing to think that God gave us a message that hopefully can be used to point people to Jesus.
Yes.
And then as we follow Jesus, we start to live and say and do what he does. So I hope you've enjoyed this conversation with my wife. We don't usually do this. We usually interview together somebody else, but it's been really fun.
I do not like being in this
I know
seat.
You don't like it. I can tell the whole time.
I don't like talking about it. I don't like talking about myself. I'd rather ask somebody else questions.
Well, here's the deal. I've got a couple more questions.
Oh, no.
And these are sort of special questions that we're going to reserve for our monthly partners. What's a monthly partner? Somebody that financially supports Family Life on a monthly basis. We call them our partners because we can't do this without you. And if you want to become a monthly partner, go to FamilyLifeToday.com and you can click on the donate button there and become a partner with us. And if that's you, you get a special extra edition that we save just for our partners.
The power of a woman that God can use. Hey, thanks for watching. And if you like this episode,
You better like it.
just hit that like button.
And we'd like you to subscribe. So all you got to do is go down and hit the subscribe. I can't say the word subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. I don't think I can say this word.
Like and subscribe.
Look at that. You say it so easy. Subscribe. There it goes.